Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Best Damn Camp, a Rodiverse read-along and analysis podcast that sets out to read all the books by Rick Riordan in timeline order. I'm a friendly neighborhood lesbian author and host, Fran. Welcome to the show. In a different kind of episode, instead of discussing the books, we are going to be discussing and talking to some real-life Camp Half-Blood counselors, directors, and all that good stuff from a real-life Camp Half-Blood, one that can be found in Austin. So for your Western Americans and Southern Americans, you don't have to worry about traveling all the way to New York because you have one very nearby and with some very incredible people involved with this camp. I am joined by three incredible people from Camp Half-Blood. I was going to say Austin, but that's because I'm English and I do not know how to say places in America very well because I do not know much about it. But Camp Half-Blood Austin, and that is the amazing Topher, Gabriella, and Izzy. Thank you all so much for coming to talk to me about this amazing camp of yours.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. I'm Topher Bradfield. I am the founder, executive director, and creative director of Camp Half-Blood Austin. We started it in 2006, and I've been haunting the place ever since. My job is mostly to deal with story and the look and feel of the place when you come to Camp Half-Blood Austin. And I get to work with some of the most amazing people on the planet, two of which are joining me here.
Hi, I'm Gabriella. I use she, her pronouns. I am a counselor at Camp Half-Blood, and I also was a camper for 3 years in high school. And ever since I was a camper, I kept bugging Isaiah about being like, I want to be a CIT, I want to be a CIT. And I applied to be a counselor in 2020 when I graduated, but then COVID hit, so I couldn't. So then life happened. They didn't accept any new employees and such. So then finally, after like studying abroad for a summer and just being home for another summer, because again 2020 graduate, so I wanted to spend time with like high school friends. I finally was able to become a counselor for 1 week last summer. And I hope to continue to be a counselor for at least a few more years. So that's my background story, a long journey of I want this, I love this, and finally coming to be one.
I'm Izzy, they, them pronouns. I'm the Aphrodite cabin counselor, or one of the Aphrodite cabin counselors. I've been going to camp since I was like 9. I think I was a camper for like 7 years probably, and then when I was 16 got a job at camp as a videographer for a documentary that I promised I would make, and I have yet to edit, but one day it's going to be great. Might be 20 years down the line, but there will be a documentary eventually. And then so for the past 2 summers I've worked as a counselor. Yeah, I've been around since I was 9. It's been a long time at camp.
Well, you're one of the long stay campers. I mean, it just means that you've been around the block.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've seen it all.
You've seen all the hydras. You've seen all the hellhounds. I mean, everything.
Yeah. You've seen the mummies.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was a great experience when I was 9, seeing mummies for the first time.
Yeah. The mummies are not kind of gentle things out at camp to sort of run into.
Mm-hmm.
They're terrible. So
it was a great monster to see as the first monster I ever encountered, for sure. Really set the tone for the next 10 years.
A little trauma, and then moving on.
Exactly.
I mean, the life of a demigod.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I've always said.
That's what we're all about.
Yeah. If there's no trauma, are you even a demigod?
And that's what I've always said. That's what I've always said.
Amazing. So I guess kind of about Camp Half-Blood Austin itself, I suppose Tiffy, you said a little bit about this, about being one of the founding members of it all. But how did it kind of like come to be, and how did Izzy and Gabriella, how did you guys find out about Camp Half-Blood Austin when you came to be campers later on? So it's Topher first.
So when I was working for a local independent bookstore here in Texas, I had a reading group that would meet, every month. We signed a book and it would have fun. We called it the Rockin' Readers, and it was a big book. I started to do full book readings with the ARCs, the advanced reader copies that publishers would send us. And I had been book talking Lightning Thief in school and getting a lot of traction with that. And so when they released the ARC for the Sea of Monsters, everybody were like, Topher, you need to read that book. I'm like, okay. So I asked the store if we could stay open late, and everybody came after school in their PJs and sleeping bags, and I read the Sea of Monsters in February of 2006 to a group of kids who were there for the duration. Did the whole, like, I had my coffee pot. I think I had Girl Scout cookies there. I was ready to go for the whole evening. We hunkered down, and I read the whole thing with all the voices and all that kind of fun stuff. And, it was like 1 or 2 in the morning when we finished, and I looked out into the audience and I said, man, wouldn't it be cool if Camp Half-Blood was a real place? And everybody just looked at me like I'd grown a second head. And they were like, well, yeah, duh. And I went, huh. And so from that time to the start of the summer, put together a plan to have Camp Half-Blood Austin become a real place, and reached out to other local independent businesses in town and tried to find a place. First camp was held in Zilker Park here in Austin. Some of you may know that, some of you may not, but it was in Zilker Park above Barton Springs. And we had about 54 or 55 demigods show up to the camp. And it was going to be the last thing that I did in Austin. I was going to move from Austin back to San Diego, where I had previously lived. I was making $7.25 an hour at that time. And my wife at the time had just graduated from university, and we were going to have to start paying off those college loans, and $7.25 wasn't going to help with that. So we were going to move back to San Diego, to a place we knew, and get going there. One of my kids, my campers, my Rockin' Readers, found out I was leaving. I didn't tell anybody. And they found out, I think, through a staff member. And they started to circulate a petition and a letter writing campaign amongst all the teachers and parents and students and librarians that had come in contact with me over the course of that year. And we're going to urge the CEO of the bookstore to do whatever it took to keep me in Austin. And so packed everything up, loved all of these kids. Like, they were my chosen family, right? And so I didn't want to have a tearful goodbye. I was just going to kind of slip out, and then write everybody a big mushy letter, saying how great it was. And I got to the CEO's office with my little cardboard box full of stuff. On my way out, the house had been packed up and was in a U-Haul, and the U-Haul was like the engine was running outside. I was just coming in to say goodbye. And the CEO invited me into his office and said, I think we need to talk about the success that was this first summer of camp. And by success, he means we didn't lose money. We didn't make a lot of money, but we didn't lose money either. And he dumped a cardboard box full of letters out on his table. And he said, Zoe, who ended up being our first camp director, by the way, Zoe kind of started, like, she found out you were leaving. You thought you were being sneaky, but you weren't sneaky enough. She found out you were leaving and started a letter writing campaign. And I need you to look at some of these, because I don't think you realized the connections you've been making in town. And man, talk about a cry fest. Like, hand-drawn pictures and letters and all this stuff. So, suffice to say, they came up with a way to keep me here, and we had to quickly find another place to live in Austin, and camp continued. And then we moved it to McKinney Falls State Park, which is a state park inside the Austin city limits. It's kind of unusual. And we've been having camp there ever since. And the idea with camp was I didn't want kids going, I want to play Percy at camp, or I want to be Annabeth, or I want to be Grover. I wanted a place where they could show up as themselves, but as themselves as they would have appeared in the books if they were to just kind of show up as a character. I didn't want to compete with what was going on in the books. I couldn't do that. Their imaginations and the way they'd imagine those characters was something that I didn't want to even try to touch. So, we just decided to kind of have the Camp Half-Blood Austin thing be its own branch camp of the camp in Long Island. Rick wrote a letter from Percy that first year, or actually the second year, inviting demigods to come to Camp Half-Blood Austin. And it's cool. I think we're going to put that back on our website, kind of once we redo the website, because it's a really cool letter. Really. But it's an immersive camp. The second you get out of your car in the morning, it's a day camp. It's not a sleepaway. It runs from 8 in the morning to 5 p.m. in the evening, so it's a full day, and we will run you ragged. We're out in the heat. We've had kids from the UK show up and melt. So it's rough, but it is. You've never had more fun in your life melting than you do with Camp Half-Blood Austin.
Yeah. It sounds like an incredible experience, and I guess kind of from like Gabrielle and Lizzie's perspective, like how did you find out about it, and like how much fun did you have?
Kind of talking about the melting part. I'm from the East Coast, so I really resonate with the melting. Even being like, especially being a counselor, it's like much harder to be in the heat, and that's something I discovered this past summer. Of like, okay, now I know how to handle this. Now I know what I need to do in order to take care of myself. But that's a huge part of it. But I found out via two counselors like social media platforms, Ansley Hutchinson, that's her last name, right? And Kaylee, I don't remember Kaylee's last name, but Kaylee had Kaylee had like vlogs going to camp. I think before she was a counselor.
Yes.
She would vlog her experience at camp. And I was like, whoa. I was like blown away by this idea of camp being a real thing. And right early high school is when I finally read the books, and everyone kept telling me, like, read the books for Gabrielle, read the books. These are like perfect for you. Are you kidding? Like, as someone with like ADHD and dyslexia, they were like, Gabrielle, you have to read these books. Why haven't you read these books? So early in high school, I finally read the books, like the summer before my freshman year of high school, I want to say. And then like late, I think after my freshman year is when I found them through the vlogs, and through Kaylee and Ansley also had this other channel where they would pretend to be characters from the books as well. So like I got really emotionally attached to like like as like a kid to these two people, and I like begged my mom like through this to be like, please let me go, please. And I'm not someone who like asks for a lot of things or wants a lot of things. And my mom's friend from college actually lives in the Austin area. So I was lucky that I could stay at her house. And then that ended up where like when I was like, I'm letting you go to this camp, you have to look at colleges when we're here. Like we have to like at least spend some time doing that. So funnily enough, because I looked at colleges here, is how I ended up going to the college I currently go to. I'm a senior in now at Trinity University, like a couple hours away in San Antonio, because my mom's friend's daughter went to Trinity. So it's kind of like a long intertwining of events that like camp has inadvertently just like affected my life. and and then I'm also initially I didn't I thought I was going to go into occupational therapy, and now I'm a theater and ancient Mediterranean studies double major with a creative writing minor. So like all these ways of like storytelling and and like representation. It's just a bunch of things, a bunch of different factors that just camp has pushed me in, I guess.
I have a very different camp origin story, which I think is funny. I read the Percy Jackson books for the first time when I was 5 years old. I was like insane as a kid. I should have been like on the playground, and I was like, I'm reading the light. I don't know if I actually comprehended a single word on that page, but I loved the books from like age 5. And Topher used to do book talks at my school. So through that, I found out about camp. But when I found out about it, I was too young to go. But I have 2 older siblings that were also campers. But they weren't allowed to attend until I was 9 because my parents knew that I would be really annoying about it if my siblings went and I didn't. So they couldn't go till they were 11. But yeah, I found out about it through Topher's book talks, and as soon as I knew about it, I was like, I have to go. I have to attend this camp. And since both my parents work full time and we live in the Austin area, it was cheaper to just send us to summer camp every week of the summer than to get a babysitter. And so camp was just put in that rotation. My dad would be getting up, and this was before online registration. My dad would get up and start waiting at line at this bookstore at 4 a.m. to get us into the sessions that we wanted. And like we built like entire carpool groups. Like it was a very involved process. I'm still friends with some of the kids I carpooled with now. But we were dedicated. We were a Camp Half-Blood family for sure. And I just kept going. Every other camp I stopped attending by the time I was like 12. But I kept with Half-Blood. I was like, I'm still going. My brother eventually stopped going. My sister aged out. And I was like, no. I don't care if I have to start paying for it. I'm going to camp. And I stuck it out, and then I got employed before I aged out. So I'm still going. Should be getting an internship this summer for sure, before going into my 3rd year of uni. But I am instead working at camp. So, it's what it is.
Nice. Well, hey, I mean, sometimes you just know where you gotta be.
Yeah, I've been on it since day 1.
I'm a day oneer.
Oh yeah.
And I suppose kind of to do with that, especially like again from like Izzy and Gabriella's perspective, but also yours as well, Topher, for how it's all organized. What sort of like activities do you guys organize at the camps itself? Like you talk about like trying to make it as immersive as possible. So I'm just intrigued, sort of like what like adventures and the mummy monster that Izzy mentioned as well. Like I'm just intrigued about all of this, like what happens with it all.
Izzy, take this one.
So much. Oh yeah, it's so fun. We've got sword fighting, but with like practice swords, obviously, because giving 9-year-olds sharp objects probably wouldn't go well. But we got sword fighting. I've never been good, but I enjoyed it every time. There's like Roman fight training, so like hand-to-hand combat. Like this camp was the most active I ever got. But it's like sword fighting, Roman fight training. There was archery, and I love archery. We've done pottery. We do music, and in the past, like some of our activities kind of change just as instructors come and go. But like we do patrols around camp just to like make sure the border's safe. We see monsters. That's always scary for me personally. One time we were chased by a smiley, which is one of our like monsters we have at Camp Half-Blood Austin. And I tripped on a root running from it. And that was probably the scariest and also most humbling experience of my life. Having to have my counselor be like, get up, get up, you can't. This is not the time to be on the ground. So my bad. Yeah, then we do like capture the flag. Oh yeah. We do like capture the flag. We do capture the skull, which is like capture the flag, but with skulls and swords. Dodge skull, also with skulls. Dodgeball with, yeah.
They're foam like
all sorts of things.
Skulls. So
they're so funny. I did one time, I did have to get concussion checked at Dodge School because I was not paying attention and I got hit directly in the eye. And I went up to my counselor like, it really hurt. But probably was mostly my fault. I'm prone to injury, which is maybe not the best combination with going to summer camp, but it's okay. I'm really brave about it. We've got first aid. I'm very well acquainted with the little first aid kit we got for stuff.
Because of you, we had to get first aid kit.
Huh?
Because of you, we had to get big first aid kits.
We do have a big first aid kit. It happens. It happens to the best of us. Yeah, we also have in the past we did history, which I was really into. Of like we did Roman history sometimes, but also just like history of wars. And I've always been a nerd, and it's nerd camp, affectionately. So I ate that up every time.
Yeah, Monstrology 101, where
Monstrology is so good.
All of the different monsters that we've encountered over the years out at camp, and how to deal with them, and what their weaknesses might be, and what dog treats versus what monsters, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's always fun. One of my good friends and coworkers, Indy, is the archivist who runs Monstrology and like has kept track, because as a camper, he would just write everything down about camp. And we've been friends since we were campers. So I witnessed all this, and he's now the archivist and gets to teach kids all of this stuff about like monsters and just the history of camp. And it's very interesting. And I learn in that rotation. Like, there's stuff that I didn't even know, even though I've been here for so long, that like, if campers come up to me with a question, I'll be like, go ask the archivist. He'll know it, even if I don't. But I know a lot of campers love that too, because that's like a way to get really immersed and like know what's going on in camp, even if you haven't been there for very long, which I think is very cool, because there's a lot of history.
Very cool.
Yeah, Gabriella, what do you got experience-wise?
Yeah. My favorite part, and you mentioned this a little bit, I mean, and I feel like every like camper's favorite part is always like patrol and quest. Twice a week, campers get to go on quest. Once like just in the middle of the week, it's like kind of general part of rotation. You pick a day. And then at the end, there's Mega Quest, where everyone goes on quest, and they go on their own quest. And so what fascinated me with that is, I mean, in general, it's just like the live action role play of it all, of where villains come and go in different points in the day, but also being able to like go on patrol and face those monsters yourself, and really like be immersed and use your powers, and I always like looked up so highly to all the counselors, especially Ansley. I was just like fascinated with like the acting capabilities of and just being able to like fully be like immersed and be like passionate about this world. And I like that, again, like the storytelling immersion aspect is just so important to me. And I loved like being able to, like, I remember we also have a thing where after camp hours, where we for the team week called Demigod Prom. And I remember Commodus for at least 2 of the years I was a camper was like one of the main big bads. So I remember him being like a huge part of of my camp experience, and his like flashy entrances and just like to get to the point, he came to one of the demigod proms. He crashed one of the demigod proms, and I just remember being like, oh my gosh, like what the heck is happening here, and just like taking a selfie with him and just like being like, oh my gosh, this is like crazy how this like villain guy is just like partying with us basically. But another thing that really stood out to me is Topher, 1 year your son was part of the plot, and he was like kidnapped and brainwashed. And I was like, whoa, like things are getting intense and real, and we're not afraid to like face those real real issues and expose kids to, especially the teens, I think, to true scenarios and intense themes that make them think about what the heck is happening here. Oh my gosh. And just like the intense emotion of that everyone puts into it, it feels so real because it is so real because everyone cares so much. And it's just amazing of how, like, I guess for better or worse, it's Stanislavski at his finest. Little theater coming out of like putting like real emotions and feelings into a piece to make like the kids' experience as great as possible. There's a lot of web of here and there, but in summary, I just love how the counselors are always like, we gotta protect the kids, and then the kids also get to use their magic powers at times too. That always blew my mind of, oh my gosh. Yeah,
you're talking about their cabin powers, right?
Yeah, cabin powers, exactly. Our cabin powers of, I remember another thing with Commodus is I got to blind him once, and that really resonated with me because I was like, I'm so powerful. Izzy, what are you gonna say?
I off the back with like cabin powers especially, there's something about just the environment of being at camp that in and of itself is so immersive because everyone is there for a reason. Like no one's going just like, oh, I have like nothing to do, so I guess I'll go to camp. Like everyone there really does love camp and wants to like make it a good experience for everyone involved. And I think that's really special to be able to like, you can like fully throw yourself into camp and be like, I'm in it. Like where demigods were like doing all this, there's like, you get a connection with your cabin because even though we're not sleeping and it's not like actual sleepaway camp with actual cabins that you sleep in, you still are with your cabin mates the whole week. So I'm like still good friends with my Aphrodite cabin mates. Because it's like you spend so much time with them, being immersed in this really cool and unique experience. And on top of that, you're taught cabin powers from your counselor of whatever it is your cabin power is. So obviously Aphrodite, the go-to is we get taught charm speak. But we had 1 year where my counselor wasn't in Aphrodite cabin. He was just stepping in. And taught us like squaw, which is we would just like screech at people like an eagle, because of this like dumb joke I had made earlier in the week. And it was so fun because it was literally, we would just be on quest and you'd be like, yeah, do it. Just go like, rah! Very fun. There's just a lot, I think a lot of the like magic of camp just comes from the environment and being like so in it. And even though we're in Austin city limits, we're in McKinney Falls, which is a state park, like you can go whenever. In my mind, it's still just so camp because it feels so separate from like everything else in life. Like camp was for me, also being queer in Texas, it was one of the first places that I felt like I could really be me because it felt so separate from the rest of my life. And it felt so separate from Texas of just being like, this is somewhere where everyone's having fun. We're like really into it. You can just kind of be who you are. And it's never like an issue. So I just always appreciated it in that regard. For sure.
Yeah, definitely. To like put in some like context for you, Fran, we have the dining hall, which is kind of like home base. And at the beginning of summer, we decorate it like completely decked out in these like really distinct decorations that are still the same from when I was a camper. I don't know if they're the same from like years and years ago.
They've definitely grown over the years, but
Yeah. It makes it like a very like I agree with that. No, it's okay.
Yeah, like even just driving up to camp when I was younger, like was such a like visceral like experience of driving up and seeing the dining hall and seeing all of the people there, like just a huge sea of orange and being like, this is it. We're so back.
We know
like,
where
we're in it.
I'm so curious, when you two were campers, Izzy and Gabriella, how did you respond to seeing those scenes on the side of the road as you were coming into camp? Monsters attacking members and, things like battle going on the side of the road as you're driving into the park. How did you like that? How did that affect you?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah. I my entire carpool, we'd be like, the second we hit the entrance to McKinney Falls, we'd be like head on a swivel. We're like, you never know. We're like, have our parents who were driving the car trying to safely get us to camp. We're like, you need to look out. There could be a mummy. You don't know. And every time we'd saw one, be like, oh my God. And then it was getting to like show up to camp and run up to your counselor, who obviously at least 10 other campers have already told them what's going on. You're like, I was driving in and by the power station, I saw a werewolf and it was crazy. And they're like, no way. No, there's no way. I had no idea. No one's told me this yet. It was just always very fun.
Yeah.
I would get emails from parents after camp was over, and it'd be something akin to like, my kid is so excited when I pick them up, and they just don't stop talking about whatever happened. I have no idea.
Yep.
I don't know what they're saying. Do you have a translator? Is there a way to translate what's going on? I don't know what you're doing, but don't stop. And then.
Yeah, my parents were very brave about it. I did not shut up.
Yeah. We'd look in the rearview mirror, and then suddenly it was quiet because you were all passed out drooling on each other on the way home. So,
Yeah.
A lot of I would knock out immediately. I'd be like so tired. Like so happy, but it's tired.
Good.
Yeah.
And Fran, what's really neat about this crew, especially, is the experience they had growing up at camp translates into this really, really kind of passionate resolve to pay it forward. They want to make sure that the kids coming through camp below them are having the same magical experience, and that's how the camp sort of kind of curates itself when it comes to staff members, because they just had this great thing and they want to be a part of it now, and they want to make sure that the demigods coming in have that same magical experience, and I love that.
Amazing. Yeah, no, honestly, I'm just seeing you guys' passion for it as well. So like, it's very clear that like the camp had an effect on you guys as you were growing up, but also now being counselors as well. Like you can just see it, like you can hear it in the way that you both speak about it as well. So it's amazing that it's had that effect from like a young age to the point that you both were kind of like, I need to be here. I need to work here. Like
it's like I'm in uni in England. I'm not like I have a house in Brighton. I could be like staying there for the summer and not in 45-degree heat. But I'm like, well, I could do that, or I could spend 2 months in Texas working at camp. So, and I'm always going to choose camp. Like, it's just going to win that battle every time.
I was really nervous last summer that I wouldn't be able to because I had an internship in San Antonio, and I was like, I really hope I could do camp. And it worked out so perfectly that the last week of camp was the week after my internship ended. So it was like perfect that I was like, yes, I can't work for 2 weeks, which was like the max that we were able to work last summer individually, at least as a new counselor. But I was just like so happy because I was like telling everyone like, what if I can't work at camp, you guys, because I need to take this internship in order to stay in the Texas area.
But it's very, very cool to see. So it's amazing that you both have had the chance to fulfill the dreams of working at camp. So it's very, very cool. And I suppose just kind of like in general, just because I know that there are multiple Camp Half-Bloods like across the country now. is there kind of like any plans in future of just expanding even further, like expanding out of America or just into other states in the US as well?
I get.
Or if you can't talk about it, don't worry.
No. It's fine. I get that question a lot. In the early years, even before like the Heroes of Olympus series, can you open up a camp in the Philippines? Can you open up a camp, in China? Or I get these emails from kids who were really eager and almost kind of desperate sounding to say, can you come to New York? Can you come to Chicago or Philadelphia or California? And at the time, I was like, well, we're trying to do the best we can here in the center of the U.S. Hopefully, you'll be able to join us. We don't really have the resources. What we do, not going to lie, is very expensive. It's expensive to put on the production that we put on, for our kids. We've had a lot of folks come to us to get training and get ideas about camps, so they can open their own. And most of the ones across the country right now from, Crystal Bob Semple and her crew, and they were trained with us. And so a lot of those kind of branch camps that you see in LA or New York or Philly, kind of places like that, are part of a really large, loose-knit family of folks where there's a lot of cooperation and best practice sharing and things like that. So it's great for us personally. Prior to the pandemic, we were looking at land to kind of have donated and purchased to build a more permanent Camp Half-Blood. And we had some preliminary plans drawn up, but the pandemic hit and that funding dried up and went away. And then we had a really hard time kind of keeping our doors open, even though I think we did a great job of doing what we did during the pandemic. And just reminding ourselves that, like, while yes, this is not the camp that we're used to, this is what we have, and we can still be there for our demigods until we can all get back together and see one another. So I'm looking at eventually changing things up, keeping the camp here in Austin, Texas, and perhaps we'll see opening up another branch camp somewhere else as I move into kind of retirement age, which won't be retiring at all. It would just be kind of starting what we
doing something else.
Yeah, well, beginning what we've accomplished here in Austin that's done so well, and I think those ingredients would do well just about anywhere. And maybe sometime in the future, years in the future, probably when my son is in college, trying to bring what we do to a new group of folks. So we'll see what happens. No permanent plans. I'm really, really happy doing what we know how to do best, which is our camp in Austin, Texas. A lot of what we do now is based on the space there, how far away things are from one another, and the familiarity with the space means that we have a way of doing things and a flow, to things that are tied very much into that space. So the idea of opening up another branch camp and trying to be as complicated and complex as we are now after 18 summers is a little terrifying. It's not going to lie, it's a little terrifying, but I think we could do a simpler version of that maybe somewhere else. So we'll have to see. I mean, it's not out of the question at this point.
Very true. And I suppose kind of like from the magic element of it all, the last question for this is, if there was one thing from the Roadverse, not like just Percy, so like something from the Kane Chronicles or Magnus Chase or anything like that you'd love to implement into the camp, what would it be and why?
Go you two.
This is something that would never happen because they're not real. But the things I would do for Pegasi riding to be real is insane.
That's so real.
All I want in life is to ride a silly little horse with wings. God forbid a girl have fun, but I don't know. And also, I think a horse, just a actual horse at McKinney would be awful. I don't know if they have horses, actually. I assume there's never a horse in McKinney. But
their hooves are too destructive for the
environment. Also, I would assume. Also, even more destructive for the environment. If we could get that dragon, if we could get Festus in there, pre-ship, right? Still a dragon. Let him loose on the feral hogs. I'm terrified of hogs. They freak me out. When I walk to the bathroom from the cabins at night, I get scared of the hogs. If I hear something in the bushes, I'm like, I'm dead. It's over. If we could get that dragon in there, he can go deal with the hogs, so I don't have to. That's what I would implement.
I'm taking notes. Go ahead.
They freak me out.
Yeah, I looked at these questions beforehand, and I'm trying to think of something. I love the Pegasus answer though. I feel like anyone would like kill to ride a Pegasus.
That'd be so good.
It would be so much fun. A flying horse. Who doesn't want to? You know. I guess on the similar end, hippocampi. We don't have a lot of water. We don't have water activities. Like we have like a hose and singing in the rain. But other than
Close enough.
we don't really like go in the water.
We don't have the facility.
And I love water.
Occasionally we have a Greek temple kind of delivered, which is basically like an inflatable water slide. And so we'll bring that and set that up in the back, for the kids to use on really, really good days. But yeah, there's not a lot of water stuff out there.
Yeah.
I forget sometimes that that's the Greek temple.
That's right.
I always called the slide the trench foot slide, just because you're seeing a ton of campers go down like full socks and shoes, and I'm like, someone's gonna get trench foot. I don't think that's how it would happen, but
no, we definitely.
in theory,
there's definitely one of those chlorine pool like pucks kind of floating in the little catch basin and a foot wash at the bottom.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's entertaining.
So for us out at Camp Half-Blood, I am a huge fan of mashing things up. So before Rick Riordan even began writing about how the different book worlds existed in one Riordan verse, we were mashing those up. So we had Phoebe and Carter King show up at camp because we had a mummy problem, and they had to teach us how to deal with it. And they gave us kind of
that was my
abilities that we use to this day. We call them hollowers. And I developed this whole process of getting wax tablets and having the hollowers carve very specific hieroglyphic runes and saying a specific phrase while they placed the tablet with the hieroglyphics on the sternum of the mummy. You actually had to like lay hands on a mummy and then say the magical phrase to hollow the ba and the ka, the animating parts of the mummy, out of the mummy and watch them collapse. So we call them hollowers. You would hollow them out. So we've been doing stuff like that for a long, long time. We have Thomas Jefferson Jr. from Magnus Chase shows up to camp all the time and has for a very, very long time. We asked Rick if that was okay, and Rick was like, "Yeah, use them, go for it, have fun with it." So we have a lot of cross-pollination all the time in our stories with those characters. Camp Jupiter is out at Camp Half-Blood Austin. They train alongside us. And then we have a cabin that we call Camp Victory, which includes all of the other Rick Riordan Presents pantheons that are represented, who can show up to camp with their god or goddess parent and have a safe place to train and adventure. So it really is this big, inclusive, not just Riordanverse, but Rick Riordan Presents and Riordanverse all in one area. So it's great. I love that stuff. I love it.
It's so cool. My first year at camp was the year that Mommies first showed up, and Sadie Kane was there. And I remember little 9-year-old me was like, "Oh my God, it's Sadie Kane!" I was flabbergasted. No, but I was so excited because I had also read the Kane Chronicles, and I was like, "Oh, it's Camp Haplet, Sadie Kane!" I offered her a piece of cake. It was like a formative memory for me. I was like jaw on the floor. It's always been very cool to be able to mix those in. I was a counselor of Camp Victory for 1 week this past summer, and it was very cool just to have campers from all different pantheons. And some of the campers knew more about their individual pantheons than I did, because I was always really into Greco-Roman mythology and history. Never I didn't spend as much time with other pantheons. And that was very cool too, to just have to learn from the campers and be like, yeah, I'm with it. That's a cool godly parent. Sure. It's always fun.
Yeah, so when
Something
you look at
interesting.
social media and you ever see somebody wearing a cornflower blue shirt with a bronze kind of like Ouroboros kind of logo on it, those are our Rick Riordan Presents Pantheon kids, and we call them Camp Victory. I'm so curious for your listeners and what they would say they would want to see at a Camp Half-Blood Austin or a Camp Half-Blood. I'm so curious to know. Many of them probably don't know what we do or have out there, but I'm so curious to see what everybody would think would be their number one thing that they would want to have that would be super meaningful for them.
I think it's very cool to still have a piece of that immersion throughout the year, because obviously you can't be at camp in November, but being able to still see pieces of camp, and through that being able to reach so many more people. I have friends in uni that have seen that TikTok and didn't even know I worked at camp. They didn't know camp was a thing. And then they were like, wait, I've been sent camp's own TikToks by people being like, this girl looks just like you. And I have crazy news for them every time. But it's cool to get a piece of that immersion to so many more people, to even if it's just for 15 seconds for the duration of the TikTok, to be able to get a little piece of that world that we've built at Half-Blood Austin. I think it's just very cool. Just seeing how far camp's been able to reach. Having friends now in England be like, I wish I could go, and I'm like, I wish you could too. I wish everyone could experience it because it's so cool. I love it.
There's been talk amongst us counselors being like, we should do something for the adults. I don't know.
I have been campaigning for an adult week for 3 years. I've been on this. I think it would be so funny.
Maybe we could try it out Saturday, Sunday kind of thing. For grown up,
Yeah. Because there's so many people, especially now, that
or maybe have a weekend just for social media folks in the fan base, and everybody.
Yeah. Els talked about it. I know. Yeah. I've talked to friends of mine that are I would love to go if y'all did something like that. And even after camp, some days my coworkers will go out to dinner and we're still in our camp shirts because we just don't change. And people have been like, oh my God, I always dreamed of going. I grew up on these books, but I didn't hear about camp till after I turned 18. And every time I go, guys, I'm telling you.
In my college, someone who grew up in Austin would beg their parents to go, and their parents would never let them go. And I found out that out 2 weeks ago, when I told them I worked at camp.
Oh.
And I was just I feel so bad because I came all the way from the East Coast and I got to go, and you didn't get to go at all. And I'm just damn, I don't know. I want these people to
I talk up camp so much.
Literally.
Because it's such a cool experience.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, the moment you guys were mentioning an adult weekend, I was like, I will fly to Austin. I'm broke.
You'll make it
I will
happen.
fly. I will get there somehow. If there was ever an adult weekend for Camp Half
That
Blood,
would be
I
so
will
much
sell
fun.
my soul.
One day, I believe.
I can guarantee that every single Percy Jackson podcaster that I know would like promote the hell out of a fundraiser for an adult weekend.
And then you get like a couple days of the magic of camp. You just get to be immersed in it, even if it's only a weekend. Like,
Well,
I don't know. All hypothetical, of course.
So many so much content that could be created at podcast content.
we've got, oh my
It's
gosh,
like-
yeah.
Oh,
We've got
yeah.
the available to us over the weekend. I don't know. Maybe we could pull something off this summer.
That's what I'm saying.
That would be so much fun, dude.
Oh, well, that all sounds really amazing. And it seriously, it sounds like you all have such a great time, and that the team itself is just made up of so many people who are super passionate, and the people who go sound like they're always having an incredible time. So it's like, I'm thrilled that I found you guys on Instagram. I'm thrilled that I found out about the Camp Half Blood, like Austin, and then everywhere else as well that was made. It's just an incredible like thing that like was created and exists, and the fact people can go and experience Percy Jackson and the world of the Rowanverse in real life, something that everyone has probably ever wanted to experience at any point since reading those books, is just incredible. So I just want to like give like huge props to you guys for like bringing that to life for people, and Topher especially for
Thank
like
you.
bringing that up as well. Just like huge. Like I'm pretty sure everyone listening and watching is like thinking you're a hero, like for bringing this to everyone and giving a safe space as well. I think that's the thing that Izzy, you mentioned that as well. Like the fact that this is also a safe space is something that is just like what everyone is probably looking for. Like Camp Half Blood in the books was like a safe space for so many people that I know just reading the book. So knowing that there is a real life place that is that safe space in real form is just amazing. So yeah, huge props to you, Topher, and to everyone who's involved with the project. And I really hope that you guys can continue to expand and that you guys can continue to get the support that you like truly deserve.
Thank you for having us. It was a real honor to be on, and I'm so glad Izzy and Gabriella were able to join us. I'm so fortunate. I would have laughed you.
I'm very glad.
I would have laughed if you said, "Hey, Topher, in year one, camp's going to be really popular. It's going to be great, and it's going to be this safe, kind of fun space for so many kids." I would have laughed at you. I never, ever would have guessed that we would be where we are now. So thank you to all the fans. Thank you to my staff. Thank you to former campers and future campers. It's huge. We hope anybody that wants to come and join us in some way someday gets a chance to.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. And thank you all for coming on. It's been great talking to you. It's been absolutely lovely, and I hope everyone who is listening or watching, all in the episode show notes or the description box are the links to all of Camp Half Blood's Austin's social medias, for the main Camp Half Blood HQ one as well, for just like information about all the places. All of that's going to be linked down below. Check them out, share the word, get all the information out there, and let's just keep supporting the real life Camp Half Bloods as much as we can. And for everyone listening, thank you all for tuning in and or watching. The Best Damn Camp is on hiatus currently, but this is a fantastic episode to end on in the lead up to the summer, because Camp Half Blood is going to be back in action this summer. So it's a perfect opportunity to end on that for the moment. But Topher, Gabriella, Izzy, thank you so much for coming on. It really was an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.